Today, federal data and surveys provide the American people with a lot of information, including some invaluable information about our society and our economy. But there are two key categories of information that are currently absent from our federal surveys, categories that I'd like to highlight a little bit during today's hearing. First, our federal surveys, and in particular the American Community Survey, or ACS, and Current Population Survey, or CPS, fail to include information about past involvement with the criminal justice system. In other words, they do not tell us whether someone has been convicted of a crime, or has been put on probation or on parole, or whether they've been incarcerated at some point during their lives. Such data would, I believe, be invaluable for understanding how much these experiences might serve as a barrier to employment. For example, it would help us answer questions like how many people out of the labor force because they have criminal records, and how does this vary in terms of geography, in terms of the geographic makeup, the demographic makeup of any particular community. In our own research on prime-age men who are out of the workforce, the JEC's Social Capital Project has found that 1/3 of these men have been incarcerated. And there's further evidence to suggest that men who are not employed are much more likely to have a criminal record than men who are. Indeed, we ought to have a fuller picture of this often forgotten segment of our population and figure out what we might do to help them, or what we might be doing to hinder them, what impacts our laws might be having on them that we're not aware of or that we didn't intend. Our goal should be to make sure that our criminal justice system is in fact just, that the punishment fits the crime and the criminal, being neither too lenient nor too harsh, and to help these men and women re-enter society and become productive members of their families and of their communities. That's precisely why I've worked with many of my colleagues on legislation to this end, legislation like the First Step Act, which was signed into law by the President after being passed by both houses of Congress in December, and which included some much-needed sentencing and prison reforms. Having complete data on these topics in our federal surveys would only further assist us in accomplishing these goals, these same goals set out and identified and passed into law in the First Step Act. Second, our surveys include limited information on social capital and on what we call associational life, which is arguably the most important factor in understanding our nation's health and happiness. The current population survey has included a few questions on social capital and associational life since 2002. But there's still a whole lot of information that's lacking that we don't even seek. For instance, it provides little information on trust or confidence in our institutions, especially local ones. It does not track loneliness, happiness, or the availability of emotional support. And it does not include information on the availability of public amenities like libraries, parks, and playgrounds, which have been shown to have a high correlation with things like community involvement. The CPS could, and I believe should, provide more information on the social integration that takes place between families, among friends, neighbors, congregants, and coworkers. And it could provide important details on the ways that technology hinders and helps social integration and interaction. Furthermore, having more social capital information in these surveys would help all of us, simply because, as research shows, strong social capital is conducive to finding and getting work. Learning this information would provide some missing pieces to a puzzle, giving us a clearer picture of ways we can strengthen our economy and help our citizens be happy and productive members of their communities. So I look forward to hearing our testimony from these witnesses today, and grateful that you'd be willing to join us. Thank you, Vice Chair.